So North Korean guards at the joint security area at Panmunjom are now armed with pistols, terminating an inter-Korean deal to demilitarize the area. Now, this is another step taken by the North after its declaration to scrap the 2018 inter-Korea military agreement. For more, we're joined by Bruce Klinger this morning. Welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, like I said, North Korean soldiers have reportedly been on shift with pistols on them since late last week. What are the North's intentions?
Well, they're showing their displeasure with Seoul partially suspending one portion of the comprehensive military agreement rather than just acquiescing to North Korea's launch of a satellite, which is yet another violation of numerous UN resolutions. So South Korea, I thought, took a very minimalist step by suspending one clause of that agreement, and in order to resume surveillance and reconnaissance activities to better identify any potential North Korean military moves along the DMZ. And then North Korea responded to that by abrogating the entire agreement. So we're really back to the 2018 situation. It's likely both Koreas will now be armed along the DMZ, but rather than a major escalation in tensions, it's really just returning us back to 2018.
I see, and this is not it. North Korea is also restoring its frontline post at the inter-Korean border. Now, Deputy Principal National Security Advisor Kim Tae-hyo said yesterday that South Korean Army plans to do the same. What other steps do you think Seoul can actually take in response to the North's moves?
Well, I think, as Seoul was saying initially after the satellite launch, they will resume reconnaissance and surveillance activities along the DMZ. And also, now that North Korea has abrogated the agreement, South Korea can resume training activity that had been curtailed by the agreement. Some training areas in the northern area of South Korea could no longer be used. And then in one example, the South Korean artillery on Yongpyeong-do could not do in-place live-fire artillery exercise. They had to move to the peninsula, whereas the North Korean 4th Corps artillery, which attacked Yongpyeong-do in 2010, could remain in place and do live-fire artillery. So now both sides will be able to resume military activity, as well as South Korea resuming reconnaissance activity.
Sure, they started with the North spy satellite launch and South Korea's partial suspension of the 2018 inter-Korean military agreement and a return of weapons at the DMZ. How will the recent tit-for-tat actions taken by the two Koreas actually play out then?
Well, with both Koreas going back to rearming along the DMZ, we'll have a balance there. And then what will continue to happen is North Korea will continue to expand, improve, augment its military capabilities, as it's been doing for years or decades. So we will see, as Kim Jong-un has promised, more satellite launches. They want to have more satellites in orbit to expand their surveillance activities. And then, it's a sure bet that they're going to continue missile launches of whatever range. And then Washington and Seoul have been saying since last year that they believe North Korea will do a 7th nuclear test at some point. And that's most likely to be a smaller new generation of tactical nuclear weapons for battlefield use. And North Korea has been talking about that for the last 2 years.
Definitely. We also have to talk about the activities of the North spy satellite. Now, what North Korea is saying that its Manligyang-1 military reconnaissance satellite took pictures of the White House and the Pentagon. Now, what's the point of saying that it took photos of these sites without actually making them public? Is it because of the security situations? What is it?
Well, I think on the first hand, they're bragging about another accomplishment. It's their first successful military reconnaissance satellite, but they don't want to perhaps reveal the capabilities of their satellite. And they've said that it's still it's an initial kind of implementation of the satellite's capabilities. So we'll have to see if they do release satellite imagery at some point, how good the quality is. It's certainly not going to be as good as other government satellites, and perhaps even not as good as some commercially available imagery. But I spent a dozen years as a CIA imagery analyst, and there's a lot of things you can do with even low-resolution imagery. You may need high-resolution imagery for identifying variants of weapons or very technical issues. But if you just want to find out if a military unit is in garrison or if it's out in a training area or whether it's preparing to invade, you can do that with low-quality imagery.
So for much skepticism for high-quality photos for now, South Korea is also set to launch its first military reconnaissance satellite on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from the U.S. Vandenberg Space Force Base in California later this week on Saturday, Korea time. Now, what makes South Korean one different from the one that the North launched?
Well, first of all, it's not a violation of UN resolutions. So nations are allowed to do satellite launches except for North Korea, which 11 UN resolutions preclude any kind of launch using what's called ballistic missile technology, which includes satellite launches or space launch vehicles, regardless of whether they claim it's for civilian purposes. So a South Korean launch would not be a violation of UN resolutions. And it's also likely to be more capable. The satellite is probably have a lower resolution, which is a higher quality, lower meter resolution than the North Korean. So it'd be much more capable in identifying and monitoring and targeting military targets.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. You have a great evening.
Thank you very much.